We're here back in the Fantasy Bar Week 11 on tap. We got 6 of my favorite plays on FanDuel and DraftKings, including my favorite pass catcher quarterback combo, a value running back in a smash spot, and of course, my favorite play of the week. Who are we talking about? Belly up to the Fantasy Bar and find out. Welcome in, guys. Week 11 edition Beers Daily Fantasy 6-pack. Appreciate you guys stopping by the Fantasy Bar, hanging out and checking out this week's video. 6 guys for you. I am loving on FanDuel and DraftKings. Let's get into it here momentarily. First, let's take care of the housekeeping. If you enjoy hanging out in the Fantasy Bar, checking out the videos, take a second, click that thumbs up button. Greatly appreciate that. That is the tip jar here in the Fantasy Bar, as we always say. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Don't miss any of the videos. Doing NBA videos, NFL every week, a sports betting video every week with my favorite NFL bets. So subscribe to the channel. Don't miss any of that. And head over to scoresandodds.com/beer for all of your sports betting needs. All right, let's get into it here. In week 11, let's start at the running back position with Brian Robinson of Washington. Now, we know by now, this is a matchup we're going to pick on to great success. It's been good to us over the last couple weeks. Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley. We're going to go right back to the well here with Brian Robinson. Now, a lot of you out there thinking, what about Antonio Gibson? I think he's squarely in play here as well. Didn't want to cram both of these guys in the video. But what I like about Robinson here, we saw 26 carries for this guy in that last game, 86 rushing yards, both season highs for him. And we know Houston going to give it up. Most rushing yards allowed, most rushing touchdowns allowed, most fantasy points allowed. So you can make the same case here for Antonio Gibson. Robinson, a little bit cheaper. I'm going to have exposure to both here. Great matchup for these Washington running backs here, specifically Brian Robinson, a little bit cheaper than Antonio Gibson. All right, let's go to the wide receiver position next with Courtland Sutton of Denver. Now, I get it. It's been frustrating with Sutton, with Russell Wilson, with this entire Denver offense, but you gotta love the spot here for Courtland Sutton. This is a terrible Raiders secondary here. Jerry Jeudy not looking likely to play. Even if he does, probably playing at less than 100%. We've seen how that goes for Jerry Jeudy, just not as effective here. So Sutton, likely the focal point of this passing attack. Dulcich, also a guy you can look at the tight end position. We saw 11 targets last week against Jacksonville. He's hit that a couple times this year, but that is a season high for Courtland Sutton here. Raiders, dead last in DVOA against the pass, and it's not even close. There's a massive gap between them and the next worst team here. So just an awful defense here. Like this Denver team, sneak in. Oh, it's tough to trust Russell Wilson right now, but Courtland Sutton, about the best spot that we can ask for here this week at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. All right, let's go to the quarterback position. No, we're not going with Russ. We're rolling with Dak Prescott of Dallas. So Dak, quietly getting it done. It's not on the Justin Fields level, which, of course, you continue to play Justin Fields if you want to go that route, but to go a little bit different here. I like this game. Dallas, Minnesota. I think there's going to be a ton of plays in this one. They could go overlooked here with Dak Prescott, but averaging almost 24 DraftKings points a game over the last couple weeks. So almost giving us a 4x return on these salaries here. Minnesota defense is about average against the run, against the pass. Overall, 19th in DVOA. So not a defense that we have to avoid. In fact, the team I think is a little bit overachieving right now, and against quarterbacks, really not been good. We're talking bottom 6 in the entire NFL in passing yards allowed, rushing yards, which we've seen Dak have some big games on the ground over the past couple seasons, and fantasy points also bottom 6 here. So Ezekiel Elliott expected to be back. That kind of waters down Tony Pollard a little bit. Sure, they're going to run the ball here. I think points are going to be scored in this game. Dak gives you upside through the air and with his legs, including the possibility for those rushing touchdowns. Dak Prescott, great leverage point off some of these other higher end quarterbacks expected to be more highly owned. All right, let's stack him up with one of his pass catchers. Let's go to tight end with Dalton Schultz. It's always nice to knock out your tight end with the stack here with Dalton Schultz, with Dak, or whatever stack you may get. If you can get that cheap tight end in there, makes life a little bit easier for you. We don't have to get 10 with Travis Kelce on an island game this week, and it'll give us a different look. CeeDee Lamb coming off a big game against Green Bay, likely the highest owned Dallas Cowboy this week. So don't hate CeeDee Lamb. Certainly going to be playing him in some of my stacks, but this just gives you a different look. Now let's look at some of the numbers. Since Dak Prescott returned to this lineup, Dalton Schultz been great. We're talking 20 targets, 17 receptions on those targets, 49 or more yards in all 3 of those games since Prescott returned to the lineup. Minnesota, another point they have struggled with is tight ends. 7th most fantasy points allowed to this position. Schultz, to me, gives you the biggest upside out of these cheap tight end options in a good matchup with this Minnesota Vikings defense. All right, let's head back to the wide receiver position next. We're rolling with T. Higgins of Cincinnati. So Jamar Chase going to continue to be on the shelf. That's good news for Higgins. Tyler Boyd, also a solid option here against Pittsburgh, a team that's been very good against the run. I know Joe Mixon coming off of that huge game, but Pittsburgh top 10 against the run. TJ Watt back in that lineup. Against the pass, not so much. We're talking about 18th in DVOA and just terrible against wide receivers. Most touchdowns allowed to this position in the entire NFL, and more importantly, the most fantasy points allowed to wide receivers here as well. Should be a condensed target tree for Cincinnati here, and they should be able to tear this defense up through the air. T. Higgins, solid option on the higher end at the wide receiver position. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for Week 11. Before we do that, let's continue our Beast of the Week contest. Easy to play, free to play, more importantly, and thank you to you guys for hanging out here in the Fantasy Bar. All you got to do, get in the comment section right below the video and guess fantasy points on FanDuel this week for my Beast of the Week. The closest guess going to win themselves a free week of RotoGrinders Premium. Chance to check it all out behind the scenes. And while you're down there, your 10 in the bar, who's your favorite play? Who's your Beast of the Week here in Week 11? Sound off in that comment section. All right, let's wrap this baby up. My favorite play for Week 11, you know, Matt's the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. We owe you one more running back here. We are rolling with Jonathan Taylor of the Colts, this week's Beast of the Week. Now, some may say overreaction to last week. Finally has a big game. Let's dig into some of the numbers here, and we'll see what you say after that. Jeff Saturday comes in. Everybody laughing about it. You bring a guy in off the streets. This team played with a lot of passion, went out there and got a win here, and more importantly, got back to what they do well. Jeff Saturday, former offensive lineman for the Colts, their strength is running the ball with their all-world running back, Jonathan Taylor, and they did just that against the Las Vegas Raiders this week. Now, best game of the season since opening day for Jonathan Taylor. I know he's been dealing with a lot of injuries, but you look at some of the prices and you compare them to what we were paying back then. I mean, he got up to $9,900 on DraftKings. We're under $8K here, under $9K on FanDuel, so the prices have ticked up some from last week, but still a great value here with Jonathan Taylor. Now, the Eagles, tough matchup for sure, especially through the air. Very good against the pass. In fact, the best team in DVOA against the pass, but against the run, one of the worst teams. In fact, the biggest run funnel defense in the NFL right now. And the big cog in the middle, Jordan Davis, remains on the shelf. They've allowed over 5 yards per carry with him out. I know they signed Ndamukong Suh, not expecting him to fill the shoes of Jordan Davis here. 28th in DVOA against the run. You want to keep Jalen Hurts and that electric Philadelphia offense on the sidelines here. How do you do that? You give the ball to Jonathan Taylor 20, 25, 30 times here at home. Jonathan Taylor in another good spot here this week. My favorite play on the board and this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll do it here for Week 11 in the Fantasy Bar with 6 of my favorite plays. If you guys have any comments, questions, feedback, hit me up in that comment section right below the video. Don't forget, fantasy points for Jonathan Taylor on FanDuel for your shot at some free RotoGrinders Premium. I want to know your Beast of the Week as well. Sound off in that comment section. If you have not already, click that thumbs up button. Greatly appreciate that. For RotoGrinders.com, I am Beer saying salut, guys. Best of luck this week. My Pints and Picks video with my 2 favorite NFL bets coming out today as well, so stay tuned for that. And if you want to overview the whole slate, tons of great content over at RotoGrinders, including DFS OG's podcast, Head Chopper, Notorious, and myself going through every single game, identifying some of our favorite bets each and every week. Go check that out on the site, on YouTube, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Good luck this week, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist